Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm sitting in today with the fine people from our counseling services. To my left is Director of Counseling Services, Tom Palmieri. Tom, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
And we're also joined today by our graduate interns, Monica Goodfred. Monica, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us back.
And Chloe Patinos. Chloe, welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
So what we're going to chat about today is the interns joined us when they first came to campus. That was back in January?
Yeah, week 2.
Week 2 of January, and have been here for several months finishing up their internships respectively. And they are finishing up this week. In fact, as the podcast airs, they will be in their final days here at Central Penn College. So we wanted to bring them back and talk to them a little bit more about some of the things that they did here on campus, some of the activities and accomplishments they've had, maybe what some of their future plans are. And we'll all end the show, Tom, with some of the programming that's coming out of the Counseling Services Office this term. So we look forward to chatting with everybody during the podcast today. All right, well, the first thing that I would like to talk with you all about is some of the accomplishments that you've had during your time here. So the 4+ months goes by pretty quickly, but at the same time, I've seen all over campus, whether it be the calendar of events, whether it be emails that I received from Tom's office. What are some of the activities that you look back on over the last 4 months that really, were excellent experiences for you and the students? I'll start with Chloe.
Well, let's see. We got to spend some time with students while they were creating the upcoming play and watch them work through the process of that. So that was really exciting. We have also gotten to conduct a lot of individual counseling sessions and see people make changes in their personal life, come to increased peace with where they are in their lives, and learn new skills. We've also gotten to make presentations to students, faculty, parents of students who are about to start or just getting ready to start.
And Monica, what were some of the programming or events that you had a piece in while you were here that resonated with you?
There are so many. I think something Chloe and I, as well as all the students, enjoyed was our presentations where we made calm down jars. If you've seen any of us or Tom on campus, you probably have at least one in your room or office. But something that we did most recently, Chloe and I, is we went with Adrian and Megan Peterson to the women's retreat that Central Penn held. And it was a really great bonding experience. I think much like our individual sessions, there was a lot of healing and a lot of new relationships. And it was really cool to see students from so many different backgrounds come together and kind of see that even though we're all very different, there are some pieces of us that are very similar to our friends and our peers.
So, Chloe, going back to something that you mentioned, you said that you had the opportunity to speak with parents of students who were about to come on campus. What were some of the things that you said to those parents in terms of some of the things that they can do, not only for themselves, but for their students as well?
Well, there's the piece about reaching out to counseling services ahead of time, and if they have any concerns that they would like to go ahead and set up services ahead of time, we can do that before they even start. They were also really interested in finding out about all the different ways that Central Penn can help students, like the Title IX office, the housing programs that we have. Well, and I think to kind of ping pong off of what Chloe was saying is something that I kind of have done, and a lot of students may not know this term, is I've put together a lot of resources. And something I did was, because every time we had some people come into our office or in groups, or even the parents would ask things, and we really weren't sure kind of what direction they would need help. And so there are resources available for pretty much anything that students might need, even if they think it's something we can't cover. And transportation, there's many different ways to get there. It's right across the river. But whether it be mental health services that we can't provide, educational plan services where you might need an evaluation, from anything like that to kind of maybe some things like birth control or like STD screening and testing. And a lot of it, if not all of it, is absolutely free. So that is something I wanted to mention because I don't think a lot of students are aware
of their sexual health, and that's something that happens a lot when you're in college.
That's very true. Monica, you'd mentioned your experience at the Women's Leadership Retreat, and you'd mentioned some of the things that you had the opportunity to do. Why was that something that spoke to you? Why was that something that you really wanted to make sure that you were involved in your time here?
Sure, because I cannot tell you, male or female, how many times I've had students come in or that I've heard in group presentations or class presentations that they wish there was more to do, or they feel like there's nothing to do, or nobody kind of gets them or understands them, and it's just so different here than they expected. And really, I hear that on a pretty daily, regular basis. So even though you might feel like you yourself is kind of feeling this way, almost everybody has felt that way. And everybody kind of wants the same thing. There's people that want to go to the movies and nobody wants to go, or there's people that have been through some kind of trauma or some kind of hardship in life and they think nobody understands. And really, I wanted to kind of point that out in a very ethical way for us as counselors to say that, hey, you're not the only one, and here's how I know. And so it made a lot of friendships happen. I don't want to say forced friendships, but friendships that maybe would not have happened on their own if this group of women had not been put together. But a lot of them are very powerful, very high potentials to be leaders and to make a difference. And they're very passionate women. We have a lot of passionate, driven students here at Central Penn. And so I think just being able to kind of make those connections with each other so everybody can kind of go out and do things and make an impact and let their voice be heard, rather just making the noise. And that's kind of something I always say.
Well, another thing that I wanted to chat with you both about today is sort of reflecting at the end of your internship. I want to start with Tom here, and then we'll come around. Tom, what's it meant to you in your office to have these two wonderful interns over the last, first 5 months of the year?
It's meant a lot, just from a kind of a numbers standpoint. So we've been able to basically almost triple the amount of students we're able to work with in the past 16 weeks solely based on the fact that Monica and Chloe were here. The overall number of appointments was like 225% higher.
Wow.
In the winter term. And I calculated that math 4 times to make sure that I was correct in reporting it to my superior. There were several instances where I was able to call either of them and be like, hey, I have a student that has an acute situation. Can you stay later? Can you come in earlier? And I've been really fortunate the fact that, and they've both been in this situation. It makes me even think about when it was just me for those 6 months, how many things I missed just because of the fact that when a door is closed and you don't see what's on the other end in the hallway. It's meant the world to me to have the two of them here.
And long term, is this the internship program that you're helping to start? Is that something that you're planning on continuing? Do you have any new interns lined up for the fall?
We do. So we have another intern from Messiah College as well. Her name is Liz Yoder. She'll actually be starting the week of the 22nd of May.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so she's going to be starting, and she's going to be with us going into the end of December of 2019. I'm currently doing some hiring and trying to get some applications for someone to start in August as well, but Liz will be starting at the end of May. So my hope is really to keep this going because there's a need. Just point blank, there's a need.
Well, clearly, and I think that the fact that you've grown so much with these two, with Monica and Chloe, goes to show you that the need is there, and that just the successes that you've had over the first, almost half of this year really speaks to the need for that here. So certainly whenever a new intern comes along, we'd love to have them come on down to the podcast. Yeah. All right, Chloe, as you wrap up your internship and you go to move to the next stage, what are some things that you can take away from this experience that maybe were your first opportunity to experience in real life, not just necessarily in a textbook or on a computer screen? And what are some of the things that you'll always remember being here at Central Penn College?
I loved working with the students. This is a younger population that I was exposed to in my other internships. And they are so dynamic and complex and creative and talented. And so it was just really inspiring to get to spend some time with them as they're on their journey through college. that was probably the most important piece to me that I'm going to take with me and remember, these interactions with people. I also really enjoyed the presentations that we were able to do where we either went into classrooms or met with the parents. And one thing that was really special was Tai Chi is a personal love of mine. And I was able to meet with some of the students so that they could use that for occupational therapy, physical therapy, have a little exposure to Tai Chi so they know what that's about when they're trying to recommend this to their clients in the future. So that was a big thrill.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Monica, same question. What are some of the things that you're going to take away from this internship? What are some of the things maybe you experienced for the first time?
Yeah. I want to say that I have absolutely loved my time here at Central Penn, and a big part of that I will take with me, whether the students remember us as their counselors or not, probably not as much as we'll remember them. I think it's for several clients, seeing them kind of find their footing as far as their own voice and making the changes they needed to kind of have a healthier balance, whether it be relationship-wise or setting boundaries, and just them kind of from where I first started seeing students to where they are today and how they're very, very vocal about, hey, this is not what I want, or this is exactly what I want, and just kind of finding them. We kind of talk about them. They're all kind of our little babies is something we had talked about at the retreat, but watching them develop and kind of grow and evolve over the course of the semester and a half that we've been here. Other things I've enjoyed, same as Chloe, I've really enjoyed the presentations where we've gotten to talk to a bunch of people where maybe we wouldn't have had encounters with them otherwise. And even on the more severe level where some of the students were really having, kind of a really hard time or kind of that emotional, just running out of steam and a little bit of a breakdown, being able to help them out and kind of seeing like their tears turn into smiles and giving them that hope. So I was really glad that we were able to see some of that. And as Tom said, there's a need. So I'm really glad we were able to address some of the student body that needed some help.
I think you see a lot of the things that we see as instructors in terms of, where we meet them first in terms of where they are at graduation. And this term, it happens frequently, but this term, one of the individuals, Dylan Kleintop, who's been involved with the Nightly News, he's the vice president. I literally had him his first college class he ever had in CPC Foundations, and fortunately, over the last 3+ years that he's been here, I've gotten to work with him, and just to see where he was that first day and to see where he is now, it's just really one of the most rewarding parts of my job. I think that we could. There's a lot of things we could be doing on this earth, and to know that we are helping people grow as humans, it's something that's captivating and is sometimes difficult to put into words when people ask me why I enjoy my job so much, and often that's one of the reasons that I say is that I really get to help people grow as individuals, which you both just mentioned. Sure. Tom, both Chloe and Monica mentioned some of the experiences in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. Are you finding that the longer you're here, the more that individuals are willing to, have you or be proactive about having you in their classrooms?
Yeah, I definitely am noticing that. I think it's kind of like an angels in the outfield situation for anybody that doesn't remember that movie from the 80s, this idea that you have to...
I think that's the 90s. Let's not date ourselves too much. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. I'll have to Google it later. Okay, we're going to pretend. You have to build a thing in order for people to use a thing. One of the things I think is happening too, and with a lot of student services, so kind of generally as a series of departments, what we're really trying to do is kind of work more collaboratively with faculty to show that our involvement enhances students' education, that when everybody's kind of able to partner up, that's when you see like the most success. Counseling isn't just when a student, quote unquote, gets in trouble. Advising isn't just when someone hasn't registered for class yet. Like the learning center isn't just because you're having a hard time. Like all of this kind of is interconnected. So this term has been awesome too, just because having a staff of 3 means that there's more options. There's been times where Chloe, like when she was describing the OTA class, she did that all by herself. I didn't even have to do anything with it. There's been times where Monica's had to handle some stuff because, one of my clients was in crisis and she was able to do it there. And that flexibility has been awesome. Like just the number of things that my office has been able to do has increased exponentially due to the fact that there's a team that I can count on. And so in addition to just having interns in general, like we've been really blessed as an institution to have the two of them specifically.
Awesome. All right. Well, Chloe, I wanted to come to you to talk a little bit more about your future plans. Again, as this podcast is being released, both Chloe and Monica are about to graduate, so congratulations from the Nightly News to both of you.
Yes, thank you.
What is next? I mean, I know that this is always the question that I'm sure that everyone asks you, and I'm sure that often it's, well, why don't you tell me? Do you have a job for me? But in a general sense, what are your plans for the next year or so?
On the journey to becoming a counselor, the next step is to go for licensure. So once we get our master's degree, then we spend 3,000 hours, which takes at least a year and a half, basically, of work in the field where we're supervised. So it's like we continue what we're doing now, but in a larger capacity, more hours per week. I think where I'm leaning is towards doing something pretty similar to this, a lot of individual counseling. I've really enjoyed that. I think that's probably one of my strengths. But at the same time, I'm going to miss doing the presentations that we were able to do here. Maybe I can continue doing something, say, with the Tai Chi, because that has a whole wellness piece that I think people really kind of respond to and enjoy.
Awesome. Monica, what are your plans after graduation? What's next for you?
Pretty much exactly what you said. You tell me kind of thing. But same as Chloe, I'm going to start working towards my licensure and my 3,000 hours. So for students that sat with us and thought an hour was a long time, we're doing 3,000 of those. I will stay with my current agency part-time and do behavior specialty, and those will count towards my licensure hours. But I'm looking for something full-time, also kind of like Chloe, where I get to do a lot of individual counseling, but I think at some point, wherever I end up, I would like to start doing a little bit more of group counseling. Chloe and I are both very different with our approaches in counseling, but, sometimes I'm a little bit of what mainstream people would maybe say like a pusher. And so I will kind of push people out of their comfort zone and their boundaries, and so I would like to do that a little bit in group, but I will do some more individual counseling as well.
But do you think that your work with Chloe has helped to maybe broaden your horizons somewhat? Because you're saying that you take a different approach, but
Sure.
Does working with each other, does that help you maybe diversify your approach somewhat?
Sure, absolutely. There's 1,000,003 approaches to counseling, and I've had students come in and try to tell me some of them. I'm like, let's tweak it a little bit, and this is kind of that theory. But yes, I loved actually working with another intern. It was very nice to be able to kind of ping pong, and if I couldn't do something, Chloe would do it, or there was oftentimes one of us would start a PowerPoint presentation, the other would finish, and then we would kind of send it to Tom and kind of add him to what he's worked on. So I've really loved working kind of in a team effort. And that's been something very different. But yeah, I've really liked seeing everybody else's different approaches. And I think, both myself and Chloe and Tom, all of us together have our own different approaches that work in different kinds of settings and different kinds of situations.
Well, to me, that's what it is about being successful. Learning from other people that are in your same position and understanding that the way you're doing things, it might not be wrong. It just might be one specific approach. And that's one of the greatest things that I love about working with my colleagues. We are all different people. We all came from different backgrounds, different experiences, different colleges we went to. But working with them really helps myself personally grow as an instructor at the college, because when I came in here, I never really had a lot of education classes. So a lot of the things I kind of had to learn through experience. And the fact that I've had such wonderful people that I've gotten to work with has really helped make me better. And it sounds like you two are sort of in the same boat.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Well, from the Nightly News, we want to congratulate both of you on your graduation. We hope you stay in touch. And hopefully, and certainly such a pleasure to have you. I did want to end the show today with a little bit of a discussion with Tom about some of the events that are coming up. Tom, I noticed that the number one event on the calendar coming up later this week, Friday, May 10th, is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Training, and that's going to be in the Conference Center from 12:30 to 1:30 on Friday, May the 10th. Could you tell us a little bit more about that program?
Yeah, so I have reached out to them to kind of do a little programming and education around May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're really trying to focus on within a college community, because we are a community, really allowing that conversation about kind of how we're feeling to like not feel like it's in the closet or that it's stigmatized. So the presentation that the folk from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention are going to be doing is really just like kind of talking to students, staff, and faculty about how to have those conversations, and not about like how to treat the concerns, because that's my neck of the woods. That's like our neck of the woods. But just like allowing the conversation to happen, because one of the things that the research is super duper clear with around folk that successfully complete a suicide is it happens in isolation. It happens when people feel like they're not able to voice their concerns and that the space that they're in won't account for that. So it's just really kind of trying to like change a little bit of the culture and just to make it okay to kind of have these conversations.
And if somebody would be interested in being a part of this training, how could they register?
You don't have to, you just show up. So like you said, it's going to be in the conference center at 12:30 on Friday the 10th. All you have to do is show up. There's no advanced registration. The marketing for that should be going out next week, which is when this is coming out. And then I'm going to be sending an email actually to all faculty and staff encouraging them to have their students attend. This is during like our common half hour. So I might even be asking the faculty members that have class starting at 1, like, hey, like, some people, this is happening, it might affect you. Is there a way to kind of incorporate this into the learning opportunity?
Awesome. I always love when there's programming on campus that we can involve into the learning experiences, because, as a professor, we do have limited time.
Sure.
But it's also important for me to get, people at your office or career services into the classroom, but also to go out onto our campus, because I think one of the areas, at least when I talk with students, that they're really missing is going to some of these things, even if it's not necessarily required, but then also as the faculty hoping to try to find ways to incorporate this into our learning discussions that we're having in class. So I think that that's awesome. So another thing that you have is during weeks 6 and 10, both in Lancaster and in Summerdale, you do free chair massages with Ian Thomas. There's a variety of times, which I will put along with this podcast, but always weeks 6 and 10. Those seem to be the two high-stress weeks, midterms and leading up to finals. So, and I appreciate that. Ian does a really nice job. What has his feedback been from having the opportunity to come over here and work with our students and faculty?
Yeah, so he's been coming here, I think this will be like the 3rd year, and he does really good work. I'll say that, and he enjoys connecting with the students. So yeah, he actually I normally try to get him to come week 5 and 10, but he's actually going to be getting married the weekend before week 5. So,
and we wish him the best. One last series of events that you have in Lancaster are the K-Pets therapy dog visits that'll be during week 6 and 10. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so K-Pets is an organization that services Lancaster County, and they provide their therapeutic animal support to schools, both at the collegiate and the secondary level, to private facilities like nursing homes or any inpatient programs or hospitals. They started coming back to the college last summer down in Lancaster, and their reception has been really positive. We actually have like a number of faculty who have like family members that do volunteer work for K-Pets. So like the last 2 times that we've had them out there, there's actually been like relatives of the faculty teaching those classes, like with the therapy dog. So it's kind of cool how it's like a local thing that for people in like lots of different ways. So they're going to be coming to Lancaster. Something that I do want to plug that is not on the schedule because it like just happened the other day and I haven't put it on the website yet is in ATEC, there's an art installation that's gone up, the Hopes and Anxiety Walls. And I want to give credit to credit where credit is due. So this was actually something that was started by Lynn Seacrest, one of the administrative assistants in the Health Sciences building. She reached out to myself and a number of other departments on campus about doing a mental health kind of art installation, and there were lots of folk involved in the implementation of that. Janet Bixler, Rob in facilities, Adrian, myself had pieces of it. There's probably like a million other humans that I'm missing, and I apologize to them later, but that's just gone up. And then on Friday, May 24th, we will actually be having a ceremonial bonfire that I am facilitating during Common Half Hour at 12:30 to kind of commence the closing of that installation. So if you want to see me light a bunch of stuff on fire and talk about it, come on down.
Awesome. Well, Tom, I have to tell you, thank you so much for taking the time out. We'd love to have you down each term to talk about what you have going on, meet your new interns, talk about some of the new programming going on. And it's with very, very much sadness that the two of you are going to be moving on. Of course, we're extremely happy and proud of you for spending your time here with the college and really doing some amazing things here. And congratulations to both Chloe Patinos and Monica Goodfred.
Well, thank you. We're both sad too, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, one door closes, another opens, as they say.
Sure.
Well, that'll be it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I just wanted to again thank the Director of Counseling Services, Tom Palmieri. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paul.
And graduate interns for another day or two, Chloe Patinos and Monica Goodfred. If you see them on campus, please wish them well. But thank you two so much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
It's been a privilege.
All right, thank you so much. All right, that's it for another episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For Professor Paul Miller, we'll see you again next time.
Hi everyone, this is Yuli. Welcome to the Nightly News Podcasting and thank you for listening.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I have the fine opportunity today to sit in with two people who I've gotten a lot of questions for, Dan Guerrisi and MaryBeth Fisher. Dan is the Student Success Coach and Military Benefits Coordinator, and MaryBeth Fisher works with our Alumni Relations and the Education Foundation. So, Dan, this is your first time down to the podcast, so we'd like to welcome you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And MaryBeth, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
You are quite welcome. Also being joined here today by Nightly News Vice President Dylan Kleintop. Dylan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So here's what we're going to be talking about today. A new program that was started during the winter term has been reincarnated here in spring, something called Cooking with CPC. This is a free cooking class that's going to take place on Wednesday, May 15th from 4:30 to 6 in the Bollinger Hall MPR. According to the flyer, come hungry and learn how to prepare an amazing meal on your own. This free series of cooking classes will teach you to prepare and cook your own meals that will stretch your budget and even impress mom. What's interesting is this month's delicious menu features chili and cornbread with Megan Rem and her family recipe. So we'll be hearing from Megan here shortly. But I wanted to talk with the two of you first about this program. Can you just give the listeners a little bit of background in terms of where did this come from? Whose idea was this? How did you start organizing this? Tell me a little bit more about the program.
Well, ironically, we both individually went to Lindsay on the same day and said, I'd like to do a cooking class. And when I went, Lindsay said, well, Dan already talked to me about it. I'm like, what do you mean Dan already talked to you about it?
So what's your background in cooking, though, that you had this fascination?
I'm Italian.
So just because you're...
We cook a lot. We have a very big family. So if it's Sunday dinner and everyone's there, it's 30 plus.
Oh, wow.
So I learned how to cook.
Dan, where did you come up with this idea? So it wasn't something that you guys came up with together. You kind of came up with it independently. Where was your thought process on all of this?
So I was looking at the NPR, and I know it's utilized pretty significantly, but I was thinking of something more we could do with it. So I've been working in the food industry for about a little over 10 years. So I thought, a lot of our students have problems with, eating and food and being able to get food. So I figured, why not offer a food class? They can learn how to cook and utilize some skills that they can use later on in life.
One of the things that I don't know if the word is not contribute, but at least I can associate with is basically my whole life, my whole working life up until About 3 years ago when I was brought on here full time, I worked in the restaurant business. I worked in kitchens for 10 years. I worked in the front of the house for 10 years, serving bartending for a long period of time. In fact, it was almost 20 years that I worked in the industry. And so it's something that I've always kind of had a passion for as well. And so I was always kind of drawn to this. And I've tried to utilize the NPR. I've had a couple of occasions where we got together with the club and I cooked them lunch. And if many of you out there know that I enjoy doing the soup sales. A lot of times I'm cooking some of those soups that we have, and I always enter the soup competitions, and I've done pretty well. I think I've won second and third over the past 2 years, and it's so funny to me because everybody always asks me, where did I get the recipe? I said, well, I went to foodnetwork.com, and I just did what they told me to do. So to me, it's just sort of second nature, but, so I appreciate the fact that we as a college have decided to make the NPR, make it possible for students to utilize that space. Now, Dylan, I want to bring you in here from a student perspective. Have you ever used the NPR to cook a meal?
Nope.
And what reason is that? Like, why don't you utilize that space more often?
I'm lazy.
Well, okay, so from your impression, do a lot of the students use the NPR?
I can't speak for other students, but last time I was on the NPR was for like the club meeting when you made grilled cheese. I know a lot of students, like for me, for example, like I have night class tonight and tomorrow. So what I'll do is I'll go to the cafeteria, get food, and then I'll get extra food to take with me to class. So like I don't necessarily have time to just go and cook like whatever I want, whenever I want. It's not that I don't know how to cook because like you, I've worked in the food industry for like 5 years. So I do know how to cook. It's just many students like me probably don't have time to just go down there and do it.
That's very interesting. And, one thing I also wanted to chat about, and I was doing a little research for the show before you guys came down today, and I found a really interesting article about food insecurity at the college level. A lot of times when we read about food insecurity, we read about that at a elementary and even middle school level. But I think a lot of times we don't necessarily think about college students being food insecure. So I just want to read a little excerpt from this article. A fear for many college students who transition from high school to university life may include gaining the dreaded freshman 15 through too much consumption of unhealthy foods. However, a recent study published in the Journal of Nutrition, Education, and Behavior found over half of college students had high levels of food insecurity, meaning they had limited or uncertain availability to healthy foods due to high costs, leading to higher risk of malnutrition. High food costs, limited income, or poor food support systems are contributing risk factors to food insecurity. In the United States, 15.9 million children under 18 live in this condition, unable to consistently access nutritious and adequate amount of healthy foods, according to the latest statistics by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This means some kids do not always know where they will find their next meal. Did this enter into the thought process here of doing this, even if nothing else, as a way to make sure that some students who may not have the access to food that they need, at least they have a good meal that day?
Absolutely. A lot of the students, when they came in, they were just thrilled that, they got a home-cooked meal for once. And it reminded a lot of them of home and that comfort food. And that was a big reason why we wanted to do it.
Additionally, we wanted them to learn how to be able to stretch their budget. And since the class, several of them have gone back to Lindsay and said, can we also educate them on budgeting for meals? Mm-hmm. So we are going to try to incorporate that into another class coming up. And we want to teach them how to use the food in the food pantry as bases to making some good, wholesome meals.
So that was one of the things that I did want to chat with you about as well, is something that the Nightly News since the very early on has supported was the food pantry. In fact, we did a fundraiser and we donated money to the food pantry, which I think is amazing. But again, and I'm going to have Lindsay on later in the term to talk a little bit more about the food pantry. But even early on, she's actually surprised that only a select number of students are actually using this. And that's sort of concerning as well, because we know the need is there. We now have the means, and it's just making the students, or I don't want to say making, that sounds terrible, but trying to get the students to take advantage of this. Just from talking to some students privately, some students don't want to take advantage of this because they feel that they might be shamed by other people here on campus. Now, Dylan, have you ever used the food pantry?
Nope.
And let's hear why.
Honestly, like, I don't like to speak for other people, like I said before, but I mean, I don't necessarily think I need the food pantry because I have a car and I just got done with my internship, so like I have money saved away. So like if I need something, I can go shopping. Plus, I live like an hour and a half from here, so if I am in dire need of something and I don't want to go shopping for it myself, I could wait for the weekend or just get it from my parents. So like I don't necessarily need the food pantry.
But by that rationale, what about students here on campus that maybe don't have the means to even... And what's even more unfortunate now at this point is there's really nowhere to walk that students can go shopping. I mean, I guess you could go down from our Summerdale campus. I guess you could go down to the plaza, and there are restaurants down there, and Rite Aid. But like, how much food are they selling? And again, back to the point of this article, sort of reading ahead, a lot of times some of that freshman 15 comes from the fact that good food is not cheap. And a lot of the food that's accessible to college students is not good food because they do have limited income. So a lot of people are going to McDonald's and buying off the dollar menu, or Wendy's and buying off the dollar menu because that's what they can afford.
Adrian does offer transportation to the local grocery stores, Walmart, and Target regularly. So any student is welcome to sign up for the shuttle to go to those places and get the food they need to supplement what's available in the food pantry.
So I'm going to kind of put you both on the spot, and then I'm going to chime in as well. If you had, let's say, a student out there is listening, and maybe they might be food insecure, what is the best piece of advice to try to budget the food that you do have that you might be able to share with the students?
Well, a pound of hamburg, for example, or a pound of chicken breast can go very far. And if you utilize the beans and the tomato sauce and the pasta in the food pantry for $5, you could easily have 2 meals.
Mm-hmm. Oh, probably more than that.
Exactly. And you could make that stretch. You could make like grilled chicken, maybe a little barbecue sauce on it. Now, yes, you'd have to buy barbecue sauce as well as the chicken. And in the food pantry, you would have the sauce and pasta and ramen noodles. So you could do 2 separate meals with that 1 pound of chicken breast for a minimum cost.
And you're not even talking about just for one. You're talking about for a group of people.
You could easily feed 2 people on 1 pound of chicken breast, 2 meals.
Without a doubt. In fact, frankly, most of the time, a pound of chicken for me will feed my whole family as our protein.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then with a pound of ground beef.
Yeah. I think a big thing is that you have to shop around. Like, you can't just go in and buy the stuff that's prepackaged or pre-made, because that stuff is always double, if not triple, the cost. Like, you can buy a package of romaine lettuce for $2 and they can make 3 or 4 salads, or you can buy a package of Dole salad mix and make 1 salad.
Right. And so just to give a little feedback here, so typically what I do most of the time for lunch, I eat a salad. So and I shop at Wise, so prices do vary, but almost all the time anymore, a head of lettuce is $1, a stalk of celery is $1, baby carrots are $1. And, you can get croutons or some other things that are relatively cheap. And even dressing's a $1. So I'm talking about making my entire lunch for a whole week. So call it 4 days for $4. Yep. So I'm spending $1 a meal and I'm eating something healthy. Now, I get it. Do we want to eat salad every single day of our lives? Of course we don't. And I understand that. So I do try to mix it up. But what I'll also do is I will try to always make a little bit of leftovers. So I'll make dinner for the family, and so we have 4. I'll typically make 5. So I'll try to split everything up in fifths. And then I've got 1 for each person, and then I have 1 for myself for the next day for lunch, or sometimes I'll let Jackie have it if I'm in a good mood. But here's my tip, and this isn't just around here. I'm just going to throw this out there because this is where I shop, but Carnes has bundles. And what these bundles are, and again, it might not be necessarily perfect for the on-campus student here, because I know that you don't really have storage in terms of cold storage, but certainly for commuters online students, the best piece of advice I can give you is just to go to Carnes and grab one of these bundles. They range from $49 to upwards to $79, depending on what you're getting. But often you will get 4 pounds of chicken, 4 pounds of pork chops, sausage, burger. Like, it's a mixture of everything, and you get everything below what they would like if you were to buy it right from the counter. So you're getting a discount right there, plus you're getting a variety of healthy and maybe not quite as healthy foods, depending on, you know, if how you want to consider the burger as well.
And if any student stops in the Education Foundation Alumni Relation offices, we have coupons for Carnes for $5 off your purchase of $35 or more.
So there's $5 off one of those bundles. I'm going to have to come and steal some of those from you. So it's eye-opening to me to learn, some of the trials and tribulations that the students have. Dylan, what are some of the reasons that maybe you guys don't cook more in your super suites?
I think one of the main reasons is we don't have anything other than a microwave. I mean, you might have, what are those things called?
Like a hot plate?
Hot plate or something. But, I mean, you can only cook, or a little toaster. I mean, you can only cook so much. Like, we only have a microwave, whereas in the apartments, you had a full kitchen. I think the other thing is, I can speak for this 100%. This happened to me over break. Domino's is right up the road. You just call up Domino's and say, hey, I just want a large pizza. They deliver it to you. The guy, when he delivered it to me, he said, you are my 4th person on this campus within the last hour that's ordered a pizza. Over break.
And that's on break.
Over break. There's no one here over break. There's maybe like 6 people over here over break.
And again, you're talking about something that's unbelievably unhealthy. If you're eating pizza a lot, and that's actually one of the things that I've been trying to work on so much, because I'm trying to drop a couple pounds, get into summer shape, and pizza always does it to me. And that's the problem about working here at Central Penn, because every time we do something, there's pizza. So it's tough to do that. You know, I guess what I'm hoping, if nothing else, is that some of the students are realizing that these facilities exist. Get a couple of containers and, put it in the fridge and pop that in a microwave. And if you would just go over and cook once, you could make meals for yourself for the next few days for a very, very limited price.
And if any student has a question about cooking for themselves or wants extra assistance in the multi-purchase room, I'll be happy, and I'm sure Dan will too. We'll make a one-on-one class. We'll just stop in and show them, get them started, answer a quick question or two, and then they'll be on their way. And the more you do it, the more confidence you get, the easier it becomes, the more logical it becomes, and the more part of your life it becomes.
Absolutely, yeah. I think cooking is one of those skills that people just assume that everyone has it, but you got to practice it. Like
you don't. We had students at our first class making baked ziti and meatballs. Mm-hmm. They never rolled their own meatballs, and some didn't know how to boil pasta. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It would
You'll
be the
start
same,
somewhere. Trust
it's
me.
the same as me saying something about the PT department. I don't know anything about that. But, we're here to help you and to give you a life skill.
I'd like to welcome on to the podcast now the individual who's going to be facilitating this month's class, Megan Ream. Megan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Paul.
We've had you down here before, and so you are a podcast veteran at this point. We had you on when you were talking about your faculty colloquium series, which, by the way, was unbelievably insightful. Absolutely loved it. I was very fascinated to hear about what you were going to talk about. But so I do want to move it forward to cooking with CPC. So how did you get involved in this?
Well, Dan and MaryBeth sent out an email asking for volunteers to help teach a cooking class, and I thought it was a great idea for our students. There's a lot of life skills that they need to learn somewhere, and if we can help contribute to that, why not?
And what is your background with cooking that you feel comfortable in teaching a cooking class?
I'm 32 years old and cook a lot. That's my background.
I love that. So on the menu this month, as we mentioned earlier, is chili and cornbread from your family recipe. So is chili something that you've made a lot? Is it something that your family makes a lot? Tell us a little bit about how you came up with this.
My mom doesn't really like to cook, so she had one thing that she would do all the time, and it happened to become a family favorite. And so since it uses a bunch of canned goods that would be found in the food pantry, MaryBeth thought that was a good fit. And then cornbread might not include a lot of the stuff in the corn pantry, but I don't bake. I mess up boxed mashed potatoes. That's not baking. But that just goes to show what some of my incapacities are. And I can make cornbread. So I thought if it's going to be a basic baking skill, why not start there?
And that's what's interesting about this is, to me, when I saw this, I've made chili before, and it's challenging to me. So that's why I was interested when I saw that it was chili, because I'm thinking, this is going to probably be pretty complicated. And then I just made a white chicken chili, not too long ago, and it was the easiest recipe I've ever followed. I guess chili seems intimidating because there's lots of stuff in it, but a lot of times it's just open up a can, dump it in, and Megan's making the exact same motions that I am. But that's what's so true is I've honestly, for a long period of time, I was intimidated by chili because I just think it seems like it's tricky to pull off. Honestly, it's a lot of canned stuff, and it's so good and it's filling. And here's the best thing about chili: chili keeps very well. It's easy to be frozen as well. So I mean, heck, if you have some extra left over, you can always just bring a couple containers, throw it in the freezer in the NPR, and then people get hungry, they can come down and grab it. It's not going to go bad.
So you're right about it all being easy like that. This will be, I think the most challenging part is just going to be cooking ground beef with onion, but that's a good experience in and of itself. If these people have never chopped an onion, they need to feel the burn in their eyes. It's a good experience to have.
I've got a big piece of advice for you, and I don't even know if you know this, so stop me if you've heard this one. That only happens to room temperature onions. If you put your onions in the refrigerator and you cut them, your eyes do not water.
You can also go in, we're not going to be in a restaurant, but if you were working in a restaurant, if you walk in a walk-in refrigerator, it takes away the burn as well.
So there's a tip for you. Yeah. So put your onions at least for a few hours ahead of time, and the coolness, I suppose, of the onion. I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect, but it's certainly not as bad as if you pick one up in the store and go home and cut it, because trust me, I've done that too.
Not going to run my mascara all over my face.
It shouldn't.
Fantastic.
It shouldn't. I would love to hear if that actually works. I mean, I've done it several times. So now, Megan, what does the whole idea, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier on the show, what is the idea of the amount of students on college campuses across our country that have food insecurity, even though they are surrounded by food, in whether it be dining halls or, often most college campuses have a McDonald's or Wendy's very close. Like, does that surprise you that the amount of people across college campuses with food insecurity?
It doesn't really surprise me based just on my own college experience. I mean, I ate peanut butter and jelly a lot during college. I made a lot of quesadillas during college. And I was a big fan of getting Progresso soup and making some rice and just combining it together because it almost tasted like a meal. So I know what it's like to be that busy and to be that inexperienced with food preparation. And I used to buy food on campus all the time, but it was super expensive. So I know how it goes.
So I do want to just read just a section more of the article. And this is from Megan Patton Lopez, who's the lead author of the study that we referenced before. And she works with Oregon's Benton County Health Department. Before, students who lived on a tight budget believed food insecurity was part of the college experience, a transitory thing. But now the rising costs of tuition are affecting more people. Many of these students who are coming from low-income families and attending college for the first time, this may be a continuation of food insecurity they've known before, and it becomes a way of life, and they don't have the resources to help them often on a college campus as well. So I honestly think that this is something that not only is developing cooking skills important, that's a big thing. Not only are you offering students here on campus an amazing meal to help maybe in some small way combat that food insecurity, but what I love is what MaryBeth and both of you referenced, the fact that you're trying to use meals that are utilizing what is in the food pantry. So if these students want to come back and make something else from similar ingredients, they know not only where to go, but where they can get the food as well. So I think that that's really, really cool. And I love the fact that you all are so passionate about this in the Cooking with Central Penn. I think it's just absolutely wonderful. And I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to put something like this on. So
thanks, Paul.
You're welcome. So the final thing that I wanted to sort of talk about here is MaryBeth's been politely asking me if I would be involved with this in a future term. So I'm going to announce right now that we will find a date over the summer that I will be hosting the next Cooking with CPC as long as MaryBeth will have me be a part of that. So,
What are you going to make?
well, you're making chili, so I guess I make a lot of soup around, but I'd be happy to cook other stuff. I actually one of my things that I cook a lot is risotto, and now we might not have that specific kind of rice in there, but risotto is relatively easy. But what's funny is a lot of people really like when you go into a fancy restaurant, risotto's on the menu. But risotto is literally the easiest thing to cook in the world. You cut up an onion, you saute that onion until it's soft, you dump in a cup of rice, and you have a pot of stock next to it, and it's just adding stock to the rice. It just takes a long time. It's probably a good 30 minutes before it's done, and you have to keep stirring it. And then what you do is you just mix stuff in with it. So maybe you saute off some, I usually do mushroom and asparagus. Saute off some mushrooms, steam off some asparagus, cut it into chunks, mix it all together. I mean, it's really the easiest thing in the world to make. And then often you're serving it with something else. So maybe I'll make like pork loin or something like that's relatively cheap. And I mean, that's like the best meal you possibly could have. Roasted pork loin and risotto. And it's so easy. And it's, put something in the oven, stir up some rice. I mean, it's super simple. So I'm just throwing that out there. But I really did just want to thank everybody. And Dylan, I hope that if nothing else, before you're out of here, maybe go use the NPR and cook dinner for everybody in your house, man. I mean, come on.
I think Brian should cook for me. He is the RA, so...
So, I mean, tell us about what some of the things you like to cook are.
When I go home on the weekend and my mom's not there, my sister's not there, my dad and we like to think we are like Gordon Ramsay. So we go at it in the kitchen. What we do is we'll get a pound of chicken, and then we'll get a grill mate. So last week or 2 weeks ago was mojito lime. And you mix it in the chicken, you let it sit for a couple hours, and then you take it out and you put it on the grill, and then afterwards it tastes amazing. It tastes like lime. And then you got smokehouse maple, and then you have other ones. You just gotta find what you want.
So you're referring to marinades.
Exactly.
Honestly, one of the easiest things you can do to really increase your flavor profile. Certainly you can buy marinades, but honestly, a lot of times I'll just mix up my own. So here's maybe another idea, MaryBeth, is it is summer. I'm a pretty good griller. We can bust the grill out, and maybe I can maybe just teach everybody a few quick tips on how to grill and get some chicken and corn on the cob.
So that's an excellent point. We actually did a survey for the first Cooking with CPC, and some recommendations that students had were tacos, grilled chicken, mac and cheese, stuffed chicken, chicken parm, Alfredo, soul food, chili, spaghetti, and stromboli or pizza. So,
excellent. Well, and I'll tell you what, one of my other specialties is macaroni and cheese, and you want to talk about literally the easiest thing to make in the world. All you need to know is how to make a roux, and that's it. You can make a roux, you can make mac and cheese. So I've got an excellent recipe. I guess that's my only problem is I don't really kind of freestyle. I usually go with a recipe, so I always feel kind of bad taking credit for the stuff because I'm just following a recipe. But, well, hey, I got to tell you, as we close out this podcast, from the Nightly News, I want to thank you all for taking the time out to really share something that you're passionate about and at the same time addressing something that's a serious problem, not only just on our campus but on all campuses, is food insecurity as college students. Just in the last year, we've come a long way with the development of the food pantry. Now we're doing some cooking classes, which I think is amazing. But to be perfectly honest with you, I think that this is something that's needed, and I'm really glad that you have had some amazing feedback so far. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Thank you, Paul. And I just want to end with that anyone can cook. So if there's any faculty or staff members or even students that know how to cook, they want to come out and do a cooking class, just let MaryBeth or myself know, and we'll sign you up. So,
well, I promise you that we'll get me on the schedule for summer, and we can chat about some things maybe that you guys want me to do, and I'll be happy to facilitate that. Before we get out of here, it's a bittersweet day for the Nightly News, as in, other than the baseball podcast that you're going to be having coming up at the end of the term, this will be Dylan's last Nightly News podcast, and I just wanted to really say thank you very much, Dylan. It's been such a pleasure. I got to meet Dylan, literally his first college class ever. He was in my class, and I think it's funny that all these years later, we've developed into, more than just student and faculty, and I I firmly believe that Dylan will be a friend of mine for the rest of my life. So, Dylan, it's been such a pleasure to have you here on campus and getting to work with you over the last few years.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Never thought coming here I would ever be on a podcast.
Well, you've been on several.
It was a great experience, and I'll definitely remember it.
Well, again, we do have one more. You are going to be doing your own podcast. That will actually, I don't know if you know this, that one that you're going to do will be the first podcast in our history that I am not going to host. You are going to be the host. So
I get to sit in that chair?
No. You can sit. You can sit where you are. I need to push the buttons over here. So, but Dylan, seriously, thank you so much for all your hard work with the Nightly News, and I look forward to that podcast. That'll be coming up in just a few weeks after the baseball season. So, Dylan, thank you so much for everything.
Thanks again.
All right, well, that's been it for another Nightly News podcast. I want to thank MaryBeth Fisher, Dan Guerrisi, and Megan Rem. We had a full house down here today, so I appreciate everybody sticking with us. And again, thank you all so much for being a part of Cooking with CPC.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, well, that's it for another episode of the Nightly News podcast. For MaryBeth Fisher, for Dan Guerrisi, for Megan Ream, Dylan Kleintop, this is Professor Paul Miller. We'll catch you next time on the Nightly News podcast.